Hello, Nesters. It's been a while. There was a little thing called the Football World Cup taking place. Not sure if you caught it, but yeah, there was a bit of a football tournament. So that kept me occupied over in the United States. Garby here with you. And that means that it's taken a while for Drew Jones and I to reconnect and talk all things West Coast Eagles. But we are ready to do that today, Drewy, and it is long overdue.
Hello, mate. Welcome back. Fantastic work with your coverage. Amazing tournament for so many reasons. I'm sure you can switch to a World Cup related podcast to catch up on anything you might have missed. Which a lot happened.
I will say this, Drewy, being away, and we're both new dads, and that is an incredible thing. We love it. We wouldn't change it for the world, but it comes with its deal of stress at times, of course, because there's a lot going on. I can honestly say that during the World Cup, being there on, working, but, you have time to chill as well, obviously. The most stressful moment I had during the whole 3.5 weeks that I was there was watching Jake Waterman deal with the yips and cost us a game or two. That's the only time I can recall being overseas and actually losing it, in contrast to, dealing with a newborn, which can obviously be challenging at times as much as it is beautiful.
I would say that watching Jake Waterman's set shots for goal has been far more stressful than anything that Max has thrown up in the last 10 months or 10 and a half months. So I think that's fair enough, mate. Socceroos, there was some stress there, but other than that, amazing tournament with some amazing news lines. And unfortunately, mate, since you've been away, ultimately, as much as we've been good, we just haven't been great, and we haven't been able to get over the line for any wins. Yeah,
it's been a real trend. So we've racked up these honourable losses. If you go all the way back to the Collingwood game, really, that's pretty much been the way of it for us. So we go close to beating the Pies, and in the last 3 weeks, it's been Adelaide, the Western Bulldogs, and Brisbane, who we've all given a serious scare to, but just haven't been able to get over the line against. There was the Carlton game that was a bit of a blip. And then there was the Port North Melbourne games back to back, where we should have won at least one of them, probably two. And we shouldn't blame Jake, because without him, we probably don't get in the game. He's been so fantastic all season. But, in those games late on, his kicking issues, which he seems to be getting on top of now, did cost us the chance to win them, which he knows more than anyone, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. He's certainly delivered far more than he has taken away from us this season. He's been fantastic. So, yeah, we're getting close. So it poses a big question on the podcast today, on the Nest podcast, which is, what is the next step for us? How do we go from these honourable losses, which, okay, we've clearly turned a corner, we've become competitive. That's great. But we don't want honourable losses to become a trend. I think you can fall in a mental trap of just being happy with these performances, and then you don't win as much as you probably should. And I just feel like it'd be great to get another scalp or two before the end of the season. I mean, get over that hurdle. So how do we do that? There's a mental aspect to it, but it feels like it's a pretty obvious discussion point, Drew, in the squad right now, that our disposal is a problem. We don't have enough skill in our team under pressure to take charge of these moments late in games and to kill these sides off. We let ourselves down, and then they go and execute, because they're slightly better teams, the other way, and take the points. So there needs to be a bit of an evolution in the side, I think, in terms of getting better kicks into the team to take charge of those moments.
No doubt about that. I think evolution is the word here, right? So, Mini has been able to fix a number of issues, and the way that we want to play is evolving. There's no doubt about that. At first, it felt like we were very helter-skelter, like trying to be Richmond from 2019. And I think the game has sort of evolved and the rules have changed and all that sort of stuff. So we had to evolve and we had to refine that game plan. So there's a bit more kick mark. And there's times where we were taking it end-to-end against Brisbane, against Adelaide, against some of the good teams. And when we are at our best, there's a nice blend, isn't there? Like, we move the ball in a balanced way, at times fast, at times slow off that half-back flank, which we were able to do against Collingwood in particular. And I think a lot has been, we need to get the ball in the hands of the right people.
Yeah.
And my view has been that with Josh Lindsay out of the side, that definitely tips the balance too far in this sort of scrappy disposal direction. And yeah, I mean, I sort of think about, Duggan and Baker using the ball off halfback, throwing Starcevic, who's not really known for his elite disposal. And we're sort of like definitely leaning too far one way in an area of the ground where essentially every other team is stacking great ball users off the halfback flank. So that's an area that we need to work on. Perhaps that explains, why we might be interested in like a Joel Jeffrey, and why there's been discussions about that, trying to find someone who can give us some skill and some bounce off halfback. And yeah, like Lindsay's a test to come back this week. You wouldn't think he'd come back straight into the AFL side. You'd think he probably has a game in the waffle. And yeah, I mean, there's broader discussion points on Duggan and Baker. But if you go through the team, there's a lot of, impact power players who aren't so much finesse guys. And there's probably a little bit of a lack of class overall. And that's an area that we probably need to address. And probably it has to be somewhat through the draft, doesn't it?
So we had to do that, right? We had to make this team more competitive. That was the number one remit from Andrew McWalter and the Eagle staff. And I fully get that. I mean, 10 of our heaviest defeats or something like, 10 of our heaviest defeats in history came in the last 5 years. 10 of our heaviest in the last 5 years. And then there's, a whole string of them just underneath that. 10 of our top 20, I think it is, in the last 5 years. And there's a whole string just underneath that top 20 that came in that time frame as well. So they had to make the team more competitive, which meant you focused on bigger bodies, you brought in Baker and Graham, and you prioritized games in people who were going to chase and tackle and run for you to ensure that the competitiveness bar of the team lifted. And that played a part in selection. So you look at guys like Jack Hutchinson and Hamish Davis, for example. I think fans have looked at both those plays and gone, geez, do they deserve the amount of games they've got? But they've got the games because of that reason. They are true competitors, bigger bodies for their age, run hard, give you a 1,000,000%, but the skills are a little bit lacking, right? No one feels confident when they've got the ball in their hands, but they probably have made up for it in other areas, and that's kept them in the team. And I'm not citing them and saying that they won't make it or whatnot. But now as this team has to go to the next level, I think we need to dilute that a little bit. And it can't be just about being tough competitors. Of course, there is a non-negotiable standard that you have to have in the team. But we need to balance in some better ball users. We just have to. And Josh Lindsay needs to be a mainstay in the team. Cooper Duff-Titan is a good kick for a big man. He'll come back in at some stage. But you look through this team at the moment and you mentioned the back line. So who have we got in our team that you could actually say are legitimate good kicks through? Tom McCarthy, yes. Marcus Herbert, yes. Willem Dersma, yes. Harley Reid when he's not throwing it on the boot, when he's got time to weigh up a kick, yes. I'd say Bailey Williams for a ruckman, yes, but he's obviously dumping it on his boot a fair bit so it can go all over the place.
Did you say Herbert?
I'd say Herbert's a good kick. Yeah, I mentioned him.
Yes.
So
we've got Herbert is underrated, I think. He's very neat and tidy with his skills.
I think Jack Graham's actually a better kick than people are giving him credit for. I think when he has to spot up someone inside 50, he's pretty accurate, but he's making some mistakes as well. And then obviously Jobe's a lovely kick. So we've got kind of 6 or 7 out of the 23 played on the weekend that you classify as being good kicks. I think we need to get that number up to kind of 11, 12, consistently.
Yeah. Can they work out a way to get Ryan Marrick in the team more often? Like, because he is a good kick.
Yeah. So
I think last year it's hard to judge him too harshly because he was kicking out of the back line so often. There are always going to be errors in that area of the ground because you have to take more risks. But yes, is there a way we can get him in?
Yeah, it's funny. Like when he was dropped, we saw him in the emergencies a couple of weeks ago. We thought, geez, interesting that Marrick's still on the emergencies when there's other guys who haven't been given a go who have been doing well in the waffle. But maybe they're looking at that and going, we'd like to have Marrick in the team because that is a problem for us. I'd like to see him get a go for that reason. I know he's got some deficiencies when it comes to his chasing and tackling. We've just highlighted that, maybe some guys who aren't as strong as others in that department get a game because their disposal is really strong. And he's in the top 5 kicks at the club. And there are people probably asking why Finn McRae and Harry Schonberg and Tommy Gross haven't got much of a go, probably for that reason. Like, they're not great kicks. I think Tommy Gross is a player. I'd love to see him in the team, but he can't get a look in when Harley, Yowie, and Kelly are there, because that's his position. And when he plays somewhere else, his disposal lets him down. Finn McRae, the knock on him at Collingwood was always around his disposal, although I'd love to see him get a go because he's trying his heart out on the waffle. So that's probably a discussion that does seem to be going on at the club. And Elijah Hewitt's another one I think that is a pretty good kick when he's got time. He also just can't find a spot in the side at the moment because of other players that are there.
Interesting you brought up Yowie there. I'm not sure how engaged you've been in terms of game to game and watching all of it, but Yo's really struggled the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Is he almost undroppable in your opinion in terms of the overall package that he brings? The fact that they played him as a defensive forward at times, so obviously he's going to get less disposals in that role. Or do you think he would be well served having a couple of weeks in the waffle and maybe someone else gets a go?
I think he should have had a rest already. I thought against Brisbane, it was clear watching on TV from the other side of the country that his body was not right. And he was playing as a defensive forward.
That's right at all.
No, he's playing as a defensive forward, and that's fine. But there was a moment late in the game where I can't remember who it was, but someone looks to spot him up in the pocket. You know, if we kick a goal there, we're still half a chance. And he couldn't actually leap for the ball. He actually couldn't jump at it. And you went there going, well, he's there to do a job and to have impact around the contest and be a leader, but your body's got to be able to get you to do the bare minimum things, and it couldn't. So I think he should have had a rest recently. We're doing this on a Thursday. We're not going to dive into the derby too much because by the time people listen to this, the game would have been played and selection would have been done. So we're not sure what's going to happen this week. But no, it seems like Hewitt should have had a go in the last couple of weeks over Yo at some stage.
Big tick for Marcus Herbert. I think it was a really good decision at the mid-season draft. Feels like we've added a well-rounded player who can play a couple of different roles, but he looks so calm and considered. He's got good physicality, skills are neat and tidy, as I said. I think we've found a really good option for us going forward, considering his age. I think it's worked out really well. Oliver Franco has been really interesting. I think he's had some really good moments in terms of being, a good clearance player, a good two-way midfielder, laying lots of tackles, affecting a lot of contests. Needs a lot of work on his disposal, and he's got some rough edges, but he is only 19, isn't he? So he's got time on his side to work all that out. It's interesting when you talk about the guys we've brought in, like Milan Murdoch, similar sort of story in terms of what he brings to the team. It's just a very different way to get there and his age and all that sort of stuff. So I think we've got our competitiveness sorted out. And as you know, there's been a lot of games this year where you've looked at our pressure rating in game and gone, geez, like we are really up there. Like we're arguably one of the best pressure sides in the comp.
Yeah.
And that is a massive tick for the coach, and really impressive. And I think we could be really happy with the strides that we've taken in that area. You're going to watch, the St Kilda game was obviously shitty. Melbourne game wasn't great. Sydney game, we got flogged by a great team. But for the most part this season, the Eagles have turned up, and maybe not always in the first quarter, but we're a lot more reliable, which is all we asked for really at the start of the year. So the news clips that have come through while you've been away. So Harry Edwards, positive news from the concussion panel that he's going to have the opportunity to play next year so long as he gets through this rehab program. So that's very good news for us. And then Bailey Williams and Elijah Hewitt committing for 6 and 4 years respectively. How did the contract stuff land with you?
Yeah, and also Archer Reed and Sam Allen got an extension as well, despite not playing. They're huge reps on him. They really think he can be a player if he gets his body right. So, and that was an interesting one too. I like all the moves that we've done. I think Bailey's a big one, of course, because he was a free agent and a blossoming ruck, and there would have been lots of offers on the table. And I've seen Eagles fans and people around the comp raise their eyebrows at the 6 years, but purely and simply, Drew, he had huge bargaining power. Like he would have had offers on the table for 4 or 5 years from clubs in Melbourne as a unrestricted or restricted free agent, whatever he was. So, he had the right to say to the West Coast, well, yeah, I want to stay here, but I'm being offered this. Can you match it or beat it? The West Coast are happy to, and I'm happy with it because we've put so much work into him. We've spoken about this a lot. He played so much football as a number one ruck way before he was ready for it because of the injuries to Natanui and then even Matt Flynn in Flynn's first season. Now we're starting to see the benefits of that. It would have hurt a lot to lose him. So he's there for a long time, but I'm sure they've managed to front end that or back end that in the salary cap, whatever they needed to do to balance out the books. And you talk about a Bailey Williams, Cooper Duff, Tytler combination moving forward. And with
Looks
the five
good
on the bench now, yeah, you can play both of them in the same team, sharing the ruck responsibilities. And they are both so good inside attacking 50. It's a fantastic combination on paper.
It's only a matter of time until that combo is a regular combo and will start to do a bit of damage. I just think it would have been stupidity for us to let him go, having put in this much work and endured so many below average games out of necessity.
Yeah.
The possibility of him playing his best football for many years at another club just would have been ridiculous. It means that we don't have to worry about if Bailey Williams had have left, then we would have had to have spent a draft pick or done something to get another ruck in.
Yeah.
And we would have just been back in the situation of having a below average ruck setup. With Bailey Williams committed to the club, we give ourselves a chance of elevating that area with CDT. And Flynn's a good backup. I'm not sure. I can't really recall what his contract situation is, but there's always going to be backup ruckman available around the comp. But that'll be our front two.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good combo. Probably 6 years, maybe 1 year heavy. But ultimately, if the Tigers and the Bulldogs have put 5-year deals on the table, then we probably have to come to the party in terms of the length of the deal. So that's all fine.
And if something goes awry, doesn't mean we can't trade him in that period. Like that could still happen if we needed to move things around because Kufat Tyler comes on so much that he has to be the number one, whatever the situation is. So you're not handcuffed.
No, there seemed to be some. It was like a middling sort of response to Elijah Hewitt's extension, but I don't think there was ever that much doubt that we would have to lock him. We were going to lock him in because we want to see the best of him, and we still feel like he's a blue chip asset. He's just he's a distressed asset. Like he hasn't had enough time to play, get a lot of continuity and play good footy. And there's nothing wrong with playing a bit of twos. Look at Jay Polkinghorne. He comes in and plays his first game. He's ready at Geelong. Like he's ready to go.
Exactly.
So Elijah needs a bit of time. And I think we've all seen enough promise from him in flashes and glimpses early on to know that he's going to be a part of that midfield going forward. So, and I think it's a pretty exciting part of it. We just have to give him the time.
Let me ask you this question. If Elijah wasn't as encouraging a leader as he is at the club, like he speaks so well, he's switched on. If he didn't have that aspect to him where you look at him and go, geez, he could be a future captain once he gets in the team and starts to find his footing at AFL level. If that wasn't the case, do you think he gets as long of a deal as he does?
My assumption, Garby, was that there were probably sort of 3-year offers on the table from Vic clubs, and maybe we've had to sort of come to the party there. Okay. I think the Eagles would feel safer giving the longer-term contract to a player that as far as I'm aware, like there's a fair bit of conviction from the Eagles about what Elijah's going to be.
Good.
So I don't think we should be surprised to see 4 years on the table.
Nice. And then Archer Reed and that's great. Archer Reed and with Sam Allen mentioned Archer Reed's and he's just an investment in the future. You don't want to lose a player with that much talent for nothing, but he's got a lot to prove and the injuries are piling up. And we've got players in those positions, but you just lock him away and all right, you see where this goes. And, if we have to trade someone or trade him in the future, so be it, but you don't want to lose him for nothing. He's a player that we've put some time into. He's happy there. So the young talents, you just lock them away and you try to build around that. And if you have to move things as time goes on, then so be it. But I think we're doing a very good job of locking away these young talents and not losing them and letting them flourish in other clubs.
Can we talk about the leadership space? And I think let's start at the top. Andrew McQualter, how would you rate his job performance this season out of 10?
Ooh, question without notice.
So,
That's all right. No, I would say 6.5. I'd say six
I'd
and
say
a half.
7.
Yeah. So I was thinking 7. Look at the wins number though, and it's still a bit low. So 6.5. If he jumps up to another win or two between now and the end of the season, then he easily gets to 7. I think he's made us more competitive. I've always liked the game plan. From the minute he's come in, you could see the team was well set up. Again, the only question mark I've got on Mini is whether he has enough inspiration about him to take this team to the next level. And that's going to be the big question. And so another big question, Drew, I think he's as we say, he's made the team competitive. We just need to get over that next hurdle now. And some of it's not in his hands because we don't necessarily have the disposal users, as we've discussed. But some of it is as well. Like you can generate performances out of the box from a team, like we've seen Sam Mitchell do with the Hawthorn side that people didn't think would jump up as quickly as they have. So the best coaches can do that. We yet to see Mini do that, but that doesn't mean that he can't next season, for example. So that brings me to my next question. He's out of contract at the end of next season. A coach going into the final year of his contract amid speculation is a dangerous situation. I don't care what anyone says. It can affect the coach's mind. It can create a lot of discussion around the team. That can get into the fabric of a club and unsettle things. Would you give Andrew McQualter a 1-year extension before next season to give him a bit more security to operate without that potentially being a distraction? Or would you say, no, you haven't quite done enough yet. You're going to coach into your final year and we'll see how he goes and how you go at the midway point?
I would hate if we went into next year with no movement on the contract.
Yeah.
I think he's done enough to deserve a 1-year extension. And the destabilizing factor that could create is just something I want no part of. And I don't think it's helpful for a team that's got a lot of young players who we're trying to develop and create this culture where they're all good mates and they've come in, from Country Vic and all that sort of stuff. We're trying to create stability here, aren't we? Like we're building towards something.
Yeah.
And at the moment, Mini's the guy. So back him in, give him the space, give him the platform to do it. If he's not the man, it's not going to make a massive difference if there's an extra year or two on the contract when we make that decision.
Exactly.
There's a 6-month payout rule which applies to Mini. So, unlike with Simo and others who signed contracts before that rule came in, so that's money is not a concern. I think the stability is what we need, and I think that's the right move. Interesting. Whenever we talk about giving a coach a contract extension, you have to acknowledge, are there better options? Is there a better option out there? Is John Longmire a better option?
Oh, I think there are good options out there. I think a John Longmire, a Nathan Buckley, and perhaps a couple of other assistants may present better options. But I think Andrew McQualter's done enough to see out next year. I think it would be incredibly harsh, for example, if he doesn't get next year. So once you make that decision, I think you got to give the extension, unless the situation was, that he was hanging by a thread and all that, like we saw with Michael Voss, for example, coming into this year. Then it's different. But he's not. We're a rebuilding club. We are improving. I'd like to see us give him that security and that confidence and say to the playing group as well, listen to this bloke, because he's the guy that we're putting confidence in. That gives you the best chance of succeeding next season. And if he doesn't take advantage of that, then as you say, if you had to pay out an extra year, well, big deal. The club can deal with that. Because there are good options out there. John Longmire says he doesn't want to coach next year. That doesn't mean that he won't the year after. I think Nathan Buckley can still make a good coach. He's a very polarizing option, Nathan Buckley. But I think if he's in the right environment, he can still generate something out of a playing group. Simon Goodwin is another one that's still out there. He's back in coaching now. They're younger guys who have had success, who it looks like have another goal in them. So I think there are options for us to take this team forward potentially. But we'd love to see Mini be the man. There are still question marks there, but I think without the confidence of an extension going into next season, it could become very difficult for a young coach to deal with a lot of the noise that will be generated around that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Nathan Buckley. I think he's got a lot to offer. I think if Richmond moved on from Adam Uze, I think Bucks would be a great option there. At the moment, I'm not entertaining that for West Coast because I'm happy with what McQualter is doing from my perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what you heard, Garby, in terms of the latter part of Chad Warner with John Longmire. But the last year under Horse was hard for everyone at Sydney, as much as they made a grand final. And perhaps the change might have been a good thing for Chad in terms of him staying at the Swans. So would that, if John Longmire was to take the job at West Coast, would that affect whether Chad wanted to come home? What is their relationship like now? It's sort of hard to know. Maybe a bit of space and distance is a good thing. That would potentially complicate that move. Just looking at Uze, so his record at Richmond, he's a year ahead. He's 9-55. And currently Mini is 5-36. And I would say Adam Uze is under pressure right now due to the lack of competitiveness of that Richmond side. And there's injuries and there's mitigating circumstances.
Yeah.
There's no way that we will be a much better side than Richmond next year, in my opinion.
For sure.
But this game coming up between Richmond and West Coast at the MCG the game means nothing, but I think it's quite an interesting case study in the second-year coach versus the third-year coach. How much progress has been made? How much influence the senior players having? How much benefit have we got from getting games into young players while the Tigers' young players have been injured? I think it's going to be a very interesting case study. And I look forward to going along and seeing a West Coast win in person with Max.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you.
Our record against them isn't great recently. So that's the one game they'll look at and they'll go, geez, we can get a win here to take the pressure off Ooze and give our place a lift. But so will we. You can tell that we're chasing wins. There hasn't been many changes in the team. And I reckon Andrew McWalter's done that to really try and stabilize the group, to chase a win, maybe to set them up to for a scalp or get ready for that Richmond game. Who knows? But it's very much focused on trying to get the 4 points at West Coast at the moment. He's not exactly trying players out, is he? He hasn't given a go to Finn McRae or another one to Harry Schonberg or Luca Grego or whatnot. He's been Tommy Gross. It's been very much focused on these players. I reckon this is my best side, and I'm sticking with it.
It has that feel that he looked at the block of games that are against good teams. He thought, okay, let's pick a stable side. Let's build up this rapport, build up the chemistry, have a good crack at this block, and that block probably ends against Freo.
Yeah,
and then you might see a little more experimentation as the latter part of the season.
Yeah, great.
I just wanted to ask about the captains. So Liam Baker suspended this week. I think we can all agree after a very impressive first season, he's been underwhelming this year. And then Duggan, we've defended Liam, and you can't question his effort. Execution hasn't always been perfect. Where do you think we're at in terms of how our co-captains are going?
I would be fine with Liam Baker staying on as captain next season. No issues there. I think it's time for Duggo to step down. He's had a good stint. He's had a good crack at it. I don't see why he needs to be a co-captain again next season. Do we lose anything massively by him doing it? Not really, but it's always harder to drop a captain, and he's spotting the team's not guaranteed. So there probably needs to be a fair conversation to say, look, Duggo, you've done a great job. We love you. You're still a fair chance to be in the 23. But guarantee. And I think it's better for you and better for us if we just remove that cloud and let Bakes captain, and you're still part of the leadership group. And Liam Baker needs to lift his performances. He hasn't had a great season. He wouldn't be top 5 in the best and fairest after winning it last year. So, but I still think he's, as a leader of the team, and even though he gets the odd little suspension here and there, his effort and his mentality is very advantageous for the group. But I'd like to see a Harley Reid be a senior vice captain with a Ruben Ginby. I think Ruben's part of the leadership group already, but Those guys being ready to step in maybe the year after for Bakes and take charge of this group.
Yeah, I like that idea. I wouldn't be against Jake Waterman stepping into co-captaincy with Baker.
Yeah.
But Jimby and Reed and Dersma, there's your future in terms of leaders. And on Jake Waterman, so the last 3 weeks he's got 9 goals, 3, including 5 straight against the Lions last week, 3 straight against the Crows. Radar was off against the Dogs, unfortunately, because that probably took away from a chance for us to really give that a shake late. But he's now got 40 goals, 43 for the season, most shots of any player basically in the AFL. Great season, or good season, could have been great, but he's fixed a few little issues, it looks like.
He's had a fantastic campaign. The kicking's been a shame, it really has, but his score involvement numbers, his goal numbers in a team that's in the bottom 3 have been brilliant. We often see silly comments from supporters, but the ones who are calling for him, we all get emotional. I get it. The losses pile up and you get frustrated and you say silly things in the heat of the moment. We've all done it. But those who are calling for him to be dropped have to be the silliest comments we heard all season.
I don't think we need to give that any airtime.
Okay, we do need to give airtime though to Rhett Bazzo. We've got 7 minutes to go here, Drewy. We always thought there was a player here. You can listen back through the Nest archives, and I think you'll hear us say that we like the way he looks. He looks comfortable with the ball overhead. He moves pretty well, and we thought he could be a player, be it forward or back. And in the absence of Jinby and Harry Edwards, he has been a serious find. And Tyler Young's performances have lifted as well. But Rhett Bazzo is really coming through on the player that we thought he could be.
Yeah, it's probably been low key one of the best stories of the season, to be honest, because we've gone from having nothing to something. I think I read today Mitch Woodcock reporting that it's going to be an extension for him in the works very soon, which I think makes total sense. But yeah, I mean, Minnie spoke about him a couple of weeks ago, I think. I may have even slipped it into an AFL Tonight in a VSOT because I wanted to give him some love, which doesn't often get on the national stage.
Yep.
He said something like, all we ask for is that for our players to improve. And Rhett Bazzo has improved every week, and he's improved almost every day in the last year. And this is where it's led him. He's now taking intercept marks. He's reliable. He's not bad with ball in hand. He's doing a lot right. And it's a bloody great story from where he's come from with injury and tragedy affecting him off the field and all sorts of stuff.
Most certainly. And a final point that I want to get on this week's episode, along with Rhett Bazzo's improvement, has been the consistency really of Jobe Shanahan. He had a couple of down weeks, but overall he's been great. Can you explain to me, Drew? You're immersed there in Melbourne. I'm in Sydney, so not as close to it all. But obviously I read plenty of it. In the Rising Star discussion, why is he not being mentioned more? I tweeted about this a few days ago. For me, he is a nailed-on third best after Jagger Smith and Willem Dersma. Like Harry Dean, yes, he's been really good, but Harry started slow. Jobe's been at it since round 1, and he hasn't really let up. His numbers for goals and contested marks for a young key forward are outstanding. You look through those stats, there is no one apart from Cooper Trembath who is in his age bracket. Why is he not being spoken about more in the Rising Star winner dispatches, like Harry Dean is, for example?
It's total Vic bias. There's an obsession with the Carlton, the duo. There's this storyline of it's unbelievable. They've got Jagger and they've got Harry Dean. There's the father-son element with Harry Dean. His Peter Dean was a pretty famous Carlton player. And I agree that it's impressive that Harry Dean is doing what he's doing as a first-year defender.
Yeah.
But it's also equally impressive, if not more so, what Jobe is doing as a young key forward, because, you just never see it. And his stats stack up against any of the great key forwards in terms of what they were doing at his age. And Trembath has been a great story as a mid-season pickup to see what he's doing. I'd have his season just behind Jobe's.
Yeah.
Although Trembath has been going in the ruck and been quite impressive there. So he's putting together a pretty good CV and a good case. But yeah, I think, is there a bias towards being more impressed with a young defender than a young forward? Like, is that a factor? I can't answer that question.
I think it's easier to come in and be a defender than it is to be a key forward, especially in a team that's won 4 games.
I agree. I agree with that, because the possibility of Jobe going through games and only having a few touches when you're losing by a lot, like that's a live option. It's never really happened that much, to be honest. I mean, you say that Jagger and Willem are neck and neck. My view is that Willem is the clear rising star.
Interesting.
I've watched them both live, and I've watched plenty of both teams, obviously. And I have Willem ahead. I think he has a much higher impact. I think he's a better rounded player. And I think Jagger was injured, but he had an entire season to be in the AFL system. And there's a few factors that I would have Willem ahead. So, yeah, I have it Willem, Jagger, Jobe, Dean, Trembath.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's going to be hard for anyone to change my mind on that. But yes, I agree that it is a skewed argument, and I just don't think you're not going to be able to convince many people. But we're probably on an island here.
Sullivan Roby is lower odds than Jobe Shanahan to win the Rising Star.
Yeah, I mean, that's just ridiculous.
What the hell? Well, I think Roby's going to be a superstar, but how has he had a better season than Jobe Shanahan?
Roby hasn't played one game that's been better than Jobe's best 3 or 4.
I mean, God, Phoenix Gothard's ahead of him. Okay, that'll change now because Gothard's out. But like, freaking hell. I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, that's been a bit of a mystery, but Jobe gets his kudos around the AFL. He does. He's had a lot of press, but in the Rising Star chat,
one of my favourite topics of discussion is Jobe. You talk to anyone, any supporter, anyone who knows footy, and you talk about Jobe, and all of the former players who do special comments on Eagles games, they know who Jobe is, even the Victorian ones who don't watch the Eagles, and they like him. Like, yeah, he's got respect. He's got street cred for what he's doing. There's no doubt. In my WhatsApp groups, I just send the king crown emoji, and my mates know what I'm talking about. I don't even have to say Jobe anymore. I just send the king, and they get it. So, yeah, he's on that trajectory. Drew, it's been a great chat. Nice to catch up. I think we covered a fair bit considering the delay, and hopefully next week we can talk about a shock derby win for the Eagles over the Dockers. Absolutely. Enjoy the derby, mate. Chat soon. Cheers, mate.